What are some of her accomplishments?
As we continue to focus on who Kamala Harris is, what she stands for, what her record is, and what she intends to do to this country, it's good to take it to the streets as well and find out if regular voters who are big time all in for Kamala Harris, if they can just sort of tell us about her greatest accomplishments. I mean, celebrate the reason for your vote. I mean, you must really have a lot to say about Kamala Harris. Why don't you share that with us? Tell us about her. You're going to have as much time as you want. Tell us about her greatest accomplishments as vice president. Okay, go.
Can you name a few of her accomplishments?
No, I can't.
What are some of her accomplishments?
I will say that everything that I've seen, I don't think that, no.
I honestly don't think she has any. The 4 years that she was in office as vice president, I didn't hear her speak once until like last week. So that's kind of my take on it.
Honestly, I think she's going to do best with voters like that. If you have not heard Kamala Harris speak in the last 4 years, you're probably open to voting for her, if not enthusiastic about voting for her. And I assure you, the remaking of Kamala Harris and the toning down of everything that's idiosyncratic and annoying about her is occurring as we speak. You realize that about 6 months ago, there were op-ed pieces in the New York Times and open discussions on cable news about why Joe Biden needs to replace Kamala Harris, that Kamala Harris is the biggest liability to the ticket because, most voters recognized that Joe Biden was not going to make it 4 years. And when you look at the specter of Kamala Harris as your president, people were, sticking their finger down their throat and vomiting up their last meal at the thought of it. But now they're stuck with her. So what are they going to do? Well, hopefully focus on everything Kamala Harris is not. That's all they can do, really. So when you ask about her accomplishments, they don't really get very far. Donald Trump and his ad campaign team, they've put together a little reminder, again, on the issues of what Kamala Harris has done in the past and what she intends to do in the future. Take a look at their latest ad.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message. This is America's border czar, and she's failed us. Under Harris, over 10 million illegally here. 250,000 Americans dead from fentanyl. Brutal migrant crimes. And ISIS now here.
Do you have any plans to visit the border? You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe. I mean, I don't understand the point that you're making.
Kamala Harris, failed, weak, dangerously liberal.
That's right. She's a San Francisco, California liberal. She helped ruin the state of California. And the one job she had for Joe Biden was the border. And I do love the fact that we've been talking about it for a week, that they've been trying to work overtime to separate her from the border and immigration policies. And so that's not true. She was never the border czar, never the border czar, never in charge of the border, never in charge of the border. Yet at the same time, they tell us what a great and complete success Biden's border policies were. Remember, for the first 3 years of this presidency, the border is secure, never been more secure. Then when it became politically untenable to continue to lie about the border, then they said, well, yeah, we've got a border problem, but we need Republicans to help us fix it, which is ridiculous because you didn't need Republicans to break it. You broke it unilaterally, and you certainly could have just reversed your original policies from day one. That was just an attempt to upend everything Trump had accomplished in 4 years, and they succeeded because that created a disaster in the first place. And now they're claiming that Kamala Harris had nothing to do with the border. If the border is really a success, they would be running and jumping and putting her on a pedestal, creating a monument in D.C. for the greatest border czar in the history of our country. They're acknowledging that the border is a disaster. They're just trying to separate her from it. It's the same way they get upset when you call her a DEI hire, even though Joe Biden, in his own words, said diversity and equity and inclusion are hallmarks of our presidency and something that we take very seriously. That's why I picked Kamala Harris as vice president. I mean, he's literally saying she was picked for DEI, and they take that as an insult, which is fascinating to me, isn't it to you? Because I'm told in my quarterly HR lessons that I have to take, because I work for a major corporation, I'm told that DEI is the greatest, most pristine, beautiful virtue that anyone can hold. If you embrace diversity, equity, inclusion, you are a saint. You're going straight to heaven. There's going to be a feast day for you. That's how beautiful and wonderful DEI is. DEI is the most important thing that we value in this country. So explain to me why calling Kamala Harris the DEI vice president is an insult. If it's so wonderful, I mean, the very people who tell us that DEI is incredible and wonderful and must be embraced and must be held up on a pedestal as the main goal, the main objective that we should all be striving for. And then you say, oh, is that right? Well, Kamala Harris represents DEI. How dare you say that about her? Yeah, that's like saying the N-word. And of course, it's not like saying the N-word because I can say DEI without any sort of social, cultural ramifications, but I can't say the N-word. That's why we say N-word instead of, right? Because that would be inappropriate. So it's not just like saying the N-word. I'm going off on a tangent here just to point out that they're liars. They're liars and they're hypocrites and they're inconsistent and they stand for nothing. They stand for nothing except winning and power and controlling you and the way you talk. That's why they're now telling you not to use DEI, even though they are the ones who have forced DEI on all of us. Got it? Good. Now, Kamala Harris has her own TV ad. She's taking this to the airways. She's trying to get younger voters with a brand new TV ad. The response from younger voters was, what's a TV? That said, here's her new ad.
The one thing Kamala Harris has always been: fearless. As a prosecutor, she put murderers and abusers behind bars. As California's Attorney General, she went after the big banks and won $20 billion for homeowners. And as Vice President, she took on the big drug companies to cap the cost of insulin for seniors. Because Kamala Harris has always known who she represents.
This campaign is about who we fight for. We believe in a future where every person has the opportunity not just to get by, but to get ahead. Where every senior can retire with dignity. But Donald Trump wants to take our country backward, to give tax breaks to billionaires and big corporations and end the Affordable Care Act. But we are not going back. I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
Well, I'll tell you, that voice isn't annoying at all. I got to commend her, though. It only took 45 seconds in her ad to talk about Donald Trump. Usually it's about 10 seconds in because, you know, that's what they stand for, not being Trump. We are not going back is going to be something you hear over and over and over again from the Harris people because they think it works. That and calling Donald Trump weird. What's interesting, though, is she is taking a lot of fire right now. Kamala Harris is not from conservatives and Republicans and Trump. No, from the left. And it's actually going to leave a mark because there is an alternative for liberals in this election. That's Robert F. Kennedy Jr. So there's a X account called Holding Biden Accountable. Push Biden Left is the handle. All right. And they've got 140,000 followers, right? Leftist critique of Biden started with Trump, now on Biden. Bad things are still bad when Dems do them, tracking how nothing would fundamentally change. Okay, you go with your bad self. So they start out this thread with, who really is Joe Biden's handpicked successor, Kamala Harris? She didn't just fall out of a coconut tree. Here's a comprehensive thread. And of course, they show a picture of her with Border Patrol down there at Joe Biden's wall. Wait, she went to the border? I do love that the one person who has a photograph of her at the border when she was there for about 20 seconds is a group on the left who hate Kamala Harris. All right. So what do they say? Before Senator Harris became vice president, she launched her career as a tough on crime top cop, rising from district attorney of San Francisco to attorney general of California. Of course, she got into the DA of San Francisco job thanks to her very close relationship with her political ally, Willie Brown. Let's just call it a very close relationship. Can we say that? Let's say that. Sure. In solid blue California, Kamala campaigned on the right-wing position of repeatedly laughing at the idea of legalizing marijuana, despite the fact that even her Republican opponents supported it. That's true.
Your opponent, Ron Gold, has said that he is for the legalization of marijuana recreationally. Your thoughts on that?
That he's entitled to his opinion.
Ask about your position on legalizing marijuana.
I'm not a proponent of that, but I know there are a lot of people who are. It's not my issue.
Not my issue. Of course, she's a hypocrite. I mean, no matter where you stand on legalizing marijuana or not, it is interesting that in this race for Attorney General of California, the Republican was in favor, the Democrat was against. By the way, in very blue, very Democrat California, Kamala Harris won this race for Attorney General by like a fraction of a percentage point. That's how California really thought of a San Francisco DA becoming their Attorney General. That was also when California was a little more competitive. What was it, 14 years ago, I want to say. But also, the most important part of this is the lying and the hypocrisy, because, of course, when she was running for vice president, she would go on urban-focused radio stations and talk about how she used to get stoned in college and loved smoking pot. So she's a hypocrite. She's also a liar, because obviously she was fine with the legalization of marijuana. When the people of California took it up on a ballot measure, she said nothing about it. Okay, moving on. Kamala could have joined other states' efforts to take marijuana off the DEA's list of most dangerous substances, or she could have refused to defend the law. Instead, she chose to send thousands of disproportionately Black Californians to jail. Well, that was because she had major ambitions to run nationally and to be the senator from California. And, being able to point to things and throwing people in jail makes you look tough. And when you're running as a woman, you got to look tough. All right, moving on. While she was DA, San Francisco is responsible for 40% of all California's felony drug arrests. Black women, 50 times the rate of other counties. 1 in 10 of her Black constituents were arrested in 1 year alone. Kamala increased the percentage of them to get elected. Now, convicted. Again, this is an argument from the left. People, liberals, left-wingers who don't like Kamala Harris. But let me also point out that she's completely flip-flopped on all of this too. And as soon as it became fashionable to say defund the police, she was leading the charge to defund the police. A charge to defund the very law enforcement apparatus that she used so robustly to further divide our nation along racial lines. Kamala locked up so many people, the Supreme Court ruled her prisons were unconstitutionally overcrowded. She not only refused to release folks, she argued that her prison labor, legal slavery by definition, was too profitable to give up. That's right. She used convicts for labor and argued that it was a great thing to do because it saved the state of California so much money. When supporting legal weed became politically expedient, Kamala shifted to laughing about how she herself smoked while locking others up for the same thing. That's right. Thank you. I already pointed that out. Moving on, as part of her tough on crime approach, Kamala assigned senior prosecutors to misdemeanors like graffiti and vandalism, tripling the number of cases brought to trial. Yet then at the same time, when it was politically expedient for her, she embraced the idea of letting criminals run rampage through the streets of San Francisco and other cities in California. My point is, she doesn't actually stand for anything except advancing her own lamentable political career. She stands for winning at all costs and changing her positions, no matter how destructive they are to certain communities or to the greater community at large, if it means she wins an election and she gets power. It makes her the perfect Democrat. It makes her a lot like Joe Biden. Kamala laughed about putting parents in jail if their kids miss school, disproportionately harming single-parent households, the poor, and families of color, including homeless mothers. And she did literally laugh about that. Kamala even pushed a law forcing schools to turn undocumented students over to ICE, separating them from their parents and violating their human rights. But then, of course, when she became vice president or running for vice president and she was opposing Donald Trump, well, not only did she not want to use ICE to kick students out of school and out of the country, she wanted to dismantle ICE completely. You understand who Kamala Harris is now? Again, not a personal attack. This is all based on her policies, and this is what the left thinks of her. Why is this a problem for Kamala Harris? Oh, who cares? They're going to vote for me too because they hate Trump. Not so fast. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I want to remind you right now, when you look at the polling of Biden and Harris, and you're going to see a lot of, oh, it's tightening in this state and it's tightening in that state, and it may be tightening. This is the heyday for Kamala Harris. This is the honeymoon that she's going to get from the media, and nobody is actually looking at her record like we are right now. You're much more informed than the average voter because you're watching this. But trust me, The head-to-head Kamala versus Trump polls are literally meaningless. The only thing that matters in this election cycle is the five-way race. Why? Because, in fact, this is a five-way race. This is not a head-to-head race. Every single ballot in every single meaningful state will have Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. It will also have Robert Kennedy, Jill Stein, and Cornel West. Those last three are running against this Kamala Harris. Oh, yes, they're running against Trump, but they're running against this Kamala Harris. So pay attention to that. That's why I wanted to share with you. And there's more. Go check out Holding Biden Accountable's account. And we've got a write-up on this over at Twitchy in the Town Hall Media Empire. I want to leave it with this last word because, this whole idea of white guys for Harris and white chicks for Harris and Kamala, scrutinizing Kamala Harris's record and people deciding to vote for her, even though she doesn't have any accomplishments, but she's a black woman after all. And it's time. It's time. Well, our friends at Twitchy found this black woman on TikTok who has a contrary opinion that I think is worth taking a look at. If you have someone in your life who's a black woman actually, let me rephrase that. If you have someone in your life who is voting for Kamala Harris for the sole reason that she is a black woman and it's time, I want you to share this with them.
Listen to me. I don't give a damn if Kamala Harris is black, if she's white, if she's Chinese, Japanese, Filipino, Indian. It doesn't matter. If she was a bad vice president, which she is, she's not going to make a good president. All she's done these last 4 years is tinker around the country with one talking point, only speaking in rhyme, and she has aided in the destruction of this country right alongside Joe Biden. If you're going to vote for that, knowing everything that you've seen these last 4 years, then you're an idiot.
There you go. Voice of change. I like her and I liked that. And have you noticed that there's a lot more of that going on right now? A whole lot more. Plan on seeing even that much more between now and Election Day.